May feel the ogden down the front straight. Rivkin still right behind him, pacing him.
How you doing? My name's George, and welcome to the Northeast RC Racer Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Toby Hansen.
Hello.
Tom Petrella.
Hello, mate.
And our boy Vin Manchenda, who's disappeared from the screen.
He's there in spirit.
Toby, it looks like one of them big Stanley Cup things you're drinking out of over there. You're going to need like 3 bathroom breaks. We did about an hour and a half episode. You're going to need 3 bathroom
all
breaks.
vodka. I drank it all. I'm ready to go.
Amount of sweat we all had today, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Could have drank it anyway. There's Vin. What's up, Vin? You said hello to you. You walked out. You're back in. There's Vin Manchenda. What's up? I don't think Vin can hear me.
I think he's sleeping at the wheel.
We're back once again.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, he can hear us. He's just ignoring us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We started.
It's all good. It's all good.
Our
All right.
production's getting better after 18
And
episodes.
it just gets better. Welcome.
My intro is better with the pauses, and then Vin just disappeared.
I can't hear George.
It's not always a bad thing.
Yeah, but I say, how do I enable that function?
You can't hear me, Vin? All right. Anyway.
George, you're on mute.
No, we hear him.
Oh. Well,
All right. You guys can tell Vinny when his segment's up.
Not just sign language.
Before I get into the typical thank yous,
how about now?
I figured I'd reach out to you boys and
Oh, we
say,
can
what's up
do.
for the summertime? How's everything going?
Oh,
It's hot out there.
I don't think anybody can hear me at this point.
I can hear you.
I can hear
George.
you.
I got
we can hear you.
All right.
loud and clear.
Oh, I don't think everybody wants to watch Vin go through a technical difficulty. So,
I'm just
That's
trying to close stuff.
Then maybe
so what's up with everybody's summer so far?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. It looks like. Okay, sorry guys.
No worries. Summer is hot and sweaty.
Been busy doing some film work, no?
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of racing. Really, I haven't raced since LCRC. That's fine. You know, that was bad enough. 3 days, 100-degree weather. That was enough for a month. Jesus
Well,
Christ.
it's looking good this weekend now. I think we're going to be in
Yeah,
some good weather.
After tomorrow, it's going to be in the 8s. It's going to be nice.
I'm stoked. I'm going to bring a sweatshirt. Not going to
Yeah,
use
it's
these
going to feel
cool
pretty
temperatures.
nippy, right? Definitely.
Perfect racing temps. You guys deserve it after that last time. That's for
Oh,
sure.
God, that was so bad.
You're going to Tom's this weekend, and I'm sure it's a barn major cooker.
You cut the humidity with a knife.
Last night, I swear, I was looking out my garage, literally like you were saying. It was literally like a white fog, except it was just humidity hanging in the air. But hopefully we're through it. Better racing, less humidity, better traction, better times. Awesome. We are, having technical difficulties with Vin, but hopefully he's going to get that straightened out. In the meantime, like we always like to do, is say thank you to our guests from the prior episode. Last episode was episode number 18, and we had a great guest, Garland Smith Jr. from G's RC out in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. It's great to hear him talk about his track. Obviously, he's hosting the ENATS this August. I believe it's actually a donation race, so he's super excited to pull it off and get some good attendance. So really happy to help him support the cause. Pretty ironically, we're going from that ENATS discussion into an episode in which we're going to get into electronic speed controls on this episode a little bit later in the podcast. So thank you, G, for coming out. We really appreciate it. Tom Petrella, didn't really get some feedback from you. Toby was busy filming, recording, sweating. You've just been working on the track the last couple of weeks. What's been happening in your neck of the woods?
Wow. Yeah, definitely working a rhythm, trying to keep that ready. We're actually getting ready to do a track layout change. So that'll be when I get back from LCRC this week. That's our plan, to get the layout change done. So I actually sent you guys a picture of the layout. You can kind of see what it looks like. Ballpark we want to share. It doesn't really matter. But hoping to get that done. That's hoping this weather breaks and we're not going to die out there trying to work. But excited to do a layout change. Tracks it's due. We're ready for something new. Speaking of something new, I did when it was stuck in the heat. Granted, it wasn't raining out, but I did take some time to build some new cars. So I actually switched over to associated. So we're going to try some what we like to call podium balls. Hopefully, I'll get some more podiums. I've been losing too much to Williard. I figure if I can't beat him, I'm going to join him. And you guys always know I pit with Butter. And Butter's been talking his car up for a long time. I said, you know what? With Vin's knowledge and experience and, their feedback on how good the car is, I figured it's worth it. And it's funny. I go back to all our conversations. We were talking a few episodes about, hey, what's the right car to get? I'm not sure if that's Vin I'm getting feedback on. So you may want to mute him.
Oh, yeah, I did mute him. I'll mute him again. Double mute.
But no, like remember the conversations we were having, like what's a good car to go with, what has parts support and a lot of racer support. I kept coming back to Associated. Every time we talked about it, I kept saying Associated. We got some other brands which are popular in the area, but Associated's popular everywhere. And again, all the feedback I've gotten from everybody, these things handle really well. They've got them locked in. So I'm excited to try it. My HB cars, which I love my HB cars. They were good cars. But I think I got them tuned so well in regards. I made them so stable that they started losing speed. It was very comfortable to drive. I think I was losing speed. And I went out to LCRC. It wasn't the last race. It was a race before. I had a chance to drive a few cars. I drove an Associated, drove a Techno, drove a Sparco, Kyosho, a little bit of everything. They were all very similar. I really liked the way the Techno felt. That felt really good. But the Associated really just seemed to carry that corner speed well. So I'm excited to try it. And again, with Vin's help, I mean, I can't think of a better team manager in the area that somebody's going to be at the tracks and go to help out. I can bounce ideas off him. I got Brett. He sits right in front of me in our pits. That's a big help. Williard's been pitting near us. That'll be another big help. Plus a lot of other guys. You got Mike Pavey doing a lot of stuff. Taylor DeRosa. We got a good group of guys. So I'm excited.
You guys going to be spooning now?
No, but I have my salmon shorts on order. I'm hoping to have them. Go to LCRC.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
I will not be taking the Aiden Horn picture of my shirt off, though. I'm a little too chubby.
Too old and chubby.
I actually saw that salmon short reference. I get it. It's pretty fun.
Well, we were passing around here. We were kind of joking. There's a picture of Drake wearing salmon shorts. So maybe it's just pillow balls now all have salmon shorts. Maybe that's the new criteria. It's not just an associated thing anymore.
Well, Tom, it's a pleasure to have you on the team, man. I feel like you're a great addition, and like some of the other guys, we're going to be bouncing setup, going back and forth, and having a good time, man. Welcome.
I'm stoked.
Me too.
Now nobody can hear George. Hey, Tobe.
It's a great podcast. So I was busy looking for some salmon shorts.
It's Prime Day. You're probably going to steal on them.
Did you hear me, Tom?
Oh, yeah. And the thing about that, I know I'm going to look right now.
George, for a second, I couldn't hear you. Say something again. Let's see what we got.
Testing. 1, 2. Testing.
We got you, brother.
Excellent. So all I was trying to say important on that was Tom's and Team Associated. Now, HB is left with one remaining driver, 1.5 remaining drivers.
Henry?
In our area, right?
Nah, there's still good. There's still a good contingency of. There's a good contingency of fast guys still floating around.
Fine deal.
There you go.
See? Save now.
I need pleats. That's a flat front. I got too much of a belly. Nah, there's still a good contingency of HP guys up there. Pappenberg's still running the car. He's been flying out there. Drakeford's always killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go wrong with Drakeford's always fast in the car. Henry, of course, is always fast with that car. So there's still a good group of guys. I'm sure some other guys I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but there's a good contingency out there.
Great car, though, nonetheless. Sometimes you just got to branch out. That's what you're doing. Run something different. All excited. I can't wait to see you race that first time around. I'll be looking at your stats this weekend. I won't be at LCRC, unfortunately, but definitely be following you guys while you're out there.
Cool.
For sure. So typically at this point, try to move into Toby's segment, covering some of the local race action. I don't know if Toby's ready to go. If he is,
I've got two Vins.
take it away, Toby.
I've got
If
another
not,
Vin.
we'll just
Vin
shuffle.
back. Oh yes, that's me. That's my name. What do I say here? Trains and Lanes cash race that I was not at. I think it was like another hot, sweaty one. Anyone you guys go? Vin, you were there, right? Oh, yeah, I can't hear you, mate. Nope.
He shook his head positive, so I think he was there.
Are you there? Okay, no. Okay, we'll do. I'll just assume you're not there. Okay, so anyway, that was cash race, July 6th. So I don't know if you guys know. Trains and Lanes every summer have a 2-day race. For the 4th of July, they have a cash race typically on Saturday, and then a club race, which is rare, at Trains and Lanes on a Sunday. And if you race at the cash race, you race for free on Sunday. And just to cover some of those results, looks like it was well attended, 138. I think these guys were running pretty late into the evening. Actually, no, 7:38 p.m. That's not too bad. It was their season opener where they ran all night long. E-Buggy, Colton Fenari, putting the spanking all the old guys, although Kaufman's not exactly old, for second, and Antonio Caputo. Anyone know Antonio Caputo? Not heard of the guy. Anyway, gets a feature. He was second. E-Truggy, Gavin Yoda. Wait, stop the press. This is the bonus race I'm looking at. Let's go back to the actual race I meant to talk about. Cash race. E-Truggy, Benny beating Ophir, which everybody loves to see. Colton and Brian Bush, that's your E-Truggy top 3. Nitro Buggy was all Colton Fenari again. Beating Schreffler, just coming off a big win of the barn, which we'll talk about in a minute. Christian, I forgot his fucking name already. His nickname coming third. E-Buggy, Kaufman, Antonio Caputo, and Ezra at your podium for E-Buggy. Nitro Truggy still hanging in there. Actually got 11 cars. Benny, of course, beating up everybody. I don't think anybody can beat Benny now. Trains and Lanes in Truggy. Bibi and Christian again. That was your 4 A-mains from the Trains and Lanes cash race. What else am I supposed to talk about? We had the Herman race. Herman Oldenburg, who unfortunately passed away earlier this year, had a memorial race for him at the barn. I think pretty well attended. So nice to see. I believe that was on Father's Day. Moving on to the Big Apple Nitro Challenge, which was this past weekend. It was a hot and sweaty one. Let me just pull up the results from that race and talk briefly about my involvement. As you know, I was doing the streaming there, and I had a couple of pretty embarrassing moments, which I'll be beating myself up about for the rest of the year. I try and
Do tell.
I try and improve the live stream and everything I do. I bought some new equipment. And as pretty much a one-man band, I'm trying to, do production, moving camera, and I'm also trying to sort of get more confident, do more interviews and stuff like that. So trying to do all 3 of these things whilst up a ladder proves a little challenging. So anyway, I run down, everything was going well. I got 4 cameras going, and everything's pretty good. But sound is always a challenge for me. Trying to get the mix of sound, ambient sound, different microphones, and switching microphones is an absolute fucking nightmare. So anyway, I'd interviewed a few people, and that went well. And then Jay Bless was in the LCQ for the feature race, the 45-minute Nitro Buggy Amen, and he won LCQ. So I come trundling down my little ladder, and I've got the mics in my hand, and I interview him, and the mics weren't turned on. So that was fucking great. So you can probably scroll back and see a completely muted conversation between me and him. And then
I saw. Don't be so hard on yourself, Tub. I watched a lot of the other ones. The one with Dennis Brew and a few other ones you did were really cool. I thought they were really good. It was a nice,
the Brew one was
nice
good.
build on everything else that was going on. So
Yeah,
don't be so hard on yourself. I appreciate being a perfectionist, but your production's really, really good.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I'm getting there. So my biggest one, which no one's mentioned it to me yet except one guy. So it means one of two things. You know, one, nobody gives a shit. I haven't watched it yet. Or two, they're just like, you know, Toby's a wanker. We fucked this up. But in the 45-minute Nitro main, you know, I'm following cars around. You know, 45 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm killing myself here. Well, I'd switch to a different camera. So when the cars come down a straightaway and they go into like a 180, I'd switch to that and then forgot to unswitch it. Or my switcher locked up and it stayed on that fucking that quarter of the track for most of the main. So I didn't even notice. And Schreffler's like, am I looking at the wrong race? Or, you know, is just the camera fucked up? I'm like, oh no. So if you go watch it, you'll see the first part of the race, and then I'm just stuck in that corner and I don't even notice. So, you know, every time I do this, I realize I need something else, you know. So the video switcher I have has a thing called a multi-view, which is a screen that basically shows what all four cameras are doing at once. So my lesson from that is I got to make sure the multi-view is right there when I'm on the camera so I can see which camera I'm live on. So every time learn something new. But I did an interview afterwards, which went pretty well, although by that point, one of my mics' battery was dying. So Zelna messaged me, is like, you did a great interview. I said, I couldn't really hear you. So you could hear Schreffler pretty well. But luckily, Kevin was interviewing as was recording the interview from his side. So maybe he'll have a better version of it. But, you know, it's a work in progress. You know, one day I'll get it just right. But we plan to do the similar kind of thing at LCRC this coming weekend. We have a few more ideas up our sleeves. And as we go into the oval race on August 3rd through 5th, I think, at LCRC, we're trying to even, you know, sort of get set up for that. So, you know,
I think you need to put Lucas on full time. We need his experience.
And then I got to pay the guy, you know, and that's. I mean, he's already
pay him half what you charge him for rent.
I mean, he pretty much lives in my house for free, drinks all my beer, eats my food. I even pay his gas. You know, like, you know, he does his own laundry. That's
very easy.
Can I be your kid?
Right? I know. Everyone just move in. Anyway, so I mean, that's good. It's great having him there because he's super smart. But you know, when you're trying to do production and camera work and interviewing, you know, if you look at like Danny Paz and Matt Olson and those guys who do like an unbelievable job, they have a crew, you know, and I have 4 or 5 guys, and that's why their shit's so good. So, you know, I try and be as good as them, but I'm just the guy. So anyway, let's move on. So the results. The big feature was a 45-minute Nitro Buggy main, which, oh, there we go. I'm looking at the results now. Jason Schreffler actually beat Cole Ogden, which was a really good race.
I read that.
And they were battling back.
Yeah, it was a really good race. Not that you'll be able to see it, but Ogden and Schreff went back and forwards mostly the whole race. They were on different pit strategies. So one would come in, take the lead. The other one would come in, take the lead. Race director couldn't keep up with that very well. But then again, I have to give him credit that the track was so beat up and so dusty after 45 minutes, you could hardly even see who was who. Luckily, Cole was running, you know, like those hot race style tires, we know, like like with the decal in the middle, you know, so you could see like the black outline, you know, so I could find his car relatively easy when he came by in a clear wing. But Schreff hung on to it, and and took the win, which he was super jazzed about, which I think we were all pretty happy for him. Brian Carter coming in third. Greg Harmer got a little calmer, had a couple of flameouts. I'll talk a little bit about that in E-Buggy in a minute. But Greg was fast, really. To be honest, if he hadn't had those flameouts, he probably may have beat Cole. But a little unfortunate for him. But him, it was really a four-way race this weekend. They were kind of in a league of their own. If you look at the results, they were pretty much lapping everybody. The electric classes had triple mains. E-Truggy, a guy we've had on this call before, Daniel Sedler, from I guess he's from Connecticut, right? He's up there somewhere.
New Hampshire.
He put a pretty beating on Benny. Benny was fast. They got close, but Danny had a really good, just was solid and took down 2-1s. So got the win. Ophir in third, and actually the A3 race was really just Ben and Ophir. There was 4 cars in it. By that time, everyone was just either gone home or their cars were broken. So it was just Benny and Ophir racing. That was A3, and then electric buggy, slightly more exciting. Greg took down the win. Schreffler and Brian Carter. There's a little drama in electric buggy. Greg had a bit of a mishap in A1, and I don't want to say cut the track, but he cut the track and upset a couple of people, and there was a little bit of sort of rough driving in the field. Let's just be polite, and the results might have been a little different, but Greg took down the win. Schreffler and Brian Carter, Daniel Sedler at the top 4, Benny in 5th. So that's your electric triples. 40 plus nitro, Jay Bless. Jay actually managed to climb his way into the feature through the LCQ, but took down the old guy race, beating Ophir and Dennis Brew up there again as usual. Dennis always puts in a good effort. Just talk about the LCQ quickly because I think that's all the A mains. The LCQ 10-minute race. So the bottom 12 drivers from the 2 semis had a 10-minute face-off just to see who could be the last driver on the 45-minute grid, 45-minute nitro buggy A main, and it was Jay Bless taking down the win there. But Jack Mulligan he was on pole when he started that race and was actually doing really well, but he rolled it over and flamed out, and his engine just kind of gave up, unfortunately, finishing 6th. So otherwise, Jack would have had that in the bag because he was a full half, 3/4 lap away from everybody else. So Tim Powers, who did well this weekend, and Tony E coming up 3rd. So that's your LCQ.
Isn't that called the Mulligan?
The Mulligan? Yeah, it could be Mulligan himself or his engine Mulligan. What else we got here? And then rhythm, I guess over to you, Tom. Talk about rhythm activity.
We don't want to talk about what happened this past weekend, do we?
Yeah.
Hold on. Before we get to anything in rhythm, I just want to say, just in regards to the barn, Dennis Brew, great job, bro. So happy to see you on the podium. You've been putting the time in, putting the effort in. You got cars, you got tires, you definitely have the equipment. So you just finally got your wheel to match the car. Congrats, man. A lot of hard work. Very proud of you. Just wanted to say that.
Sure.
Go, Tom.
No, so Rhythm, I was go over the last results. We've been doing a ton of club race. We haven't really had any big races yet. We do have something coming up, likely in September. George and I are trying to work it out for Northeast RC Racer podcast sponsored event. So we're trying to get to that. So we've been trying to just basically do club racing. We're trying to, Jim and I are still working on the track, trying to learn things. And, just a quick shout out to G before Garland last time gave me a lot of good advice and was like, Will was like, I'll drive out and help you guys. He's been awesome, but we're continuing to try to learn. But last race out, Nitro Buggy, Zach Sinclair took the win. Zach was his K car was rolling. He looked really good. Arturo Ruiz finished in 2nd place. And Mike Sinali, who I know he's raced up at trains too, but he races a lot with me. he's fast, man. He runs a TLR. He's fast. He's consistent. Does really well. His son's been coming out. His son's name's Lewis. Chip off the old block. Kid's fast just as well. Electric truggy class, which we actually broke up. We had electric and nitro together because there just hasn't been a ton of nitro truggies, but I don't want those guys missing out. But Mel Tassone, you guys all remember Mel Shells? Good to see him again. He was out there, looked really good, really consistent. So Mel took the win. Jess Smith took second in the electric class. And then Ryan, I'm not going to try to pronounce the last name, Moscaso. It was the first time actually coming out, and he finished up on the podium, which was pretty cool. And then on the nitro side, Arturo Ruiz took the win. He was rolling. He was out there. But Angel Garcia did really well, and Rock Hakeem. So those guys did really good. It was good to see. And then I got to give a shout out to George. I put something up on Facebook too. Really happy for George. George went out and played, raced the 40-plus class and the regular e-buggy class, and took the win in both. Looked really good. And it wasn't like he walked away. No offense, George. He had to earn every bit of it through consistency. He was bouncing all over the place, but kept his head down. I said his name a few times when he was out there racing, didn't see him wreck, because usually I'm like the announcers jinx. As soon as I say somebody's name, 2 seconds later they wreck. What was that, Toby? Does that mean he's got to go to bed? Is that your nighttime alarm or what?
No, I think so.
That's Vinny. He's got to take NyQuil again.
But no, shout out to George. George took the win in both e-buggy and 40-plus. E-buggy class, it was George, Mike Sinali, and then Rob Caruso. So it was Kyosho, TLR, Kyosho. Caruso putting in a ton of work with that car, but learning a lot, man. He's like the professor. Really good to see. So he had a really good run. And then in the 40-plus class, it was George, Caruso, and Mike Mulhern. I'm not sure if you guys know Mike. Mike was a big racer at Family Hobbies. His son got into sprint car racing, so he kind of stepped away from the hobby for a while and now is back racing again because his son's no longer doing it. Mike comes out to the indoor track too. He's running, I think, a B6.1 or a B6.2. He'll kill you with consistency. I didn't go back and look at the sheets as we're talking, but super, super consistent racer, super good guy. So happy to see him do really well. But that was our latest race. Next thing on tap, we'll do the layout change, which is coming up. I can let's see if I can do a quick screen share of what I got planned for that. It could change a little bit, but to give you guys a quick idea, we're let's see, window. Here it is.
There's a picture of George. Check it out.
It was Sombrero Day.
That's like the next layout we got planned for you guys. So trying to get a little more technical than what we had in the past. Try to do some more. I don't know why I'm doing anthills. I guess I've been tortured enough by the movements from RC that I'm going to do the same to everybody else and have some off-camera stuff. But that's the layout we're going to stick with next time around. You know, not a drastic change, but definitely going to make the track a little wider, probably adding about 10 foot in width. Going to bring the front straight a little narrower because the front straight right now is probably about 18 foot deep. We're going to probably bring that down to about 14 foot deep or 15 foot deep. So give you guys a little more space. All the lanes will be at least 12 foot. So pretty excited for what's coming.
Cool.
I'm super excited, Tom. You know, listen, I love racing in the tri-state. Trains, Barn's been my home for a lot of years since Vineland hasn't been around, but I'm so happy to have a place to race in New Jersey, and I'm full in support of Rhythm and just a really good program. Ultimately, you know, the number one thing I can tell you that I've heard in the pits from everyone and online, you can see it, is just that you run a really tight program. You know, we're like, I guess you learned from Linda back in the day, right? Just keep running that clock, keep moving things along. And, you know, it's really great. And that's the added benefit. Even when it was busier, I was still out of there by 5:30, you know, the last time I raced, not this time around. But, you know, it's a great program. A lot of people are saying lots of good things. Really looking forward to the next layout. And it's just great stuff. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, man. That's what club racing's about, right? A lot of guys have other stuff they need to do. And I've always been an advocate for being at the track all day. Look, I'm going to be leaving for LCRC tomorrow, so I'm going to be there Wednesday through Sunday. But not everybody wants to have that commitment. And if you only have a day to race, make the most effective use.
That was perfect. That's what I heard from other people too that were there. Guys that normally I maybe would have seen at the barn. They were happy for the 1 day race, less fee. I couldn't make the personal commitment 3 days. That's why I was at your place. But anyway, awesome. Other thing, the guy Mike that you mentioned, was he the guy that I had mentioned to you and said how fast he was and where I could pick up some time to try to match his qualifier times? Is that the same guy?
Probably, yeah, had to be. He's a good dude. Good people.
Yeah. You know, in that race with me and Caruso and that guy Mike, it was great. Rob was like just super fast. He was gapping me the whole time. But then I tried to keep their pace. But at the end of the day, the way the track was at that point, the harder you pushed, just the more bouncier it got. So it almost was pull back a little bit. And I think that's where the secret was, because both guys actually were faster than me qualifying, but just being a little bit easier on the throttle through that bumpy condition. So, but what a great race. Caruso, great job. It's been fun battling you the last couple of races back and forth. And the other guy, Mike, man, he was 5 seconds ahead of me. I think the first qualifier and 10 in the second. So in the main, when I actually got by him, I was astounded because I thought he was just going to walk away. But look forward to racing him again. Anyway, moving on. We got a guest who's waiting in the wings. He's been hanging out there. I'm sorry to keep you. It's a guest that we've had on before, Jared Bardin, team manager for Tekin. Tekin is an electronic speed control motor and servo company, and we're going to be bringing him into the podcast now.
Here he comes.
Here he is. What's up,
There
Jared?
he is.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Can everybody hear me good?
So that's my son.
What's up, Jared? Hey, welcome back, number one. Jared was here on a prior episode as a racer and a race announcer, and we're so happy to have him back because he's going to tell us a little bit about the Tekin product, being team manager for Tekin, and some of advices that he can give us on how to operate it. He's going to work, I think, with Tom Petrella. Tom's also part of Team Tekin, and those guys are going to run a little bit of the conversation about speed controls. Jared, before we get into any of that, and I'm just going to do a brief kind of history on speed controls. But before I start that, how have you been? What's been going on? And welcome back.
Hey, welcome. Good to be back, and a warm welcome back. It's been great to talk with you and Tom both about the show, and I appreciate you being understanding of my my life commitments recently. I know we tried to shoot for a show in May and it didn't end up working, but I appreciate you understanding. It's been great. Life's been good. A lot of stuff going on. In fact, it's actually featured a lot less of me going to these travel races, so that's why I'm more excited to see you guys all here in total, because I haven't been able to see you guys yet this year. It's been very busy. Life's great. Announcing a lot of races out on the road. I've for some reason decided to frustrate myself more and pick up trying to learn a new hobby by playing golf. That's going to be a lifelong process learning that. But yeah, things are great. I'm still doing my weekly racing. I'm actually going to RC Madness this weekend. LCRC, wish him well. Obviously, wish Kevin and Krista well, and can't wait to see those guys. And yeah, great. Everything's good on the driving side. I'm running S-Works cars this year. Really enjoying this whip. Also, tires, which is very, very complimentary. I really appreciate everything that Jason and the whole team have done for me. Really happy with the tires, of course, and very happy with that. On the announcing front, I've picked up gigs in multiple states. I've moved out west a little bit. I got gigs in North Dakota, Montana, Colorado, Texas, California, all coming up in 2025. So I'm very grateful for that. And something to segue into this Garland on the last episode posting the ENAT. I'm very pleased to announce first here to the crowd that I have been offered the ENAT's announcing job, and I have accepted it. So life's great.
Nice. Very cool.
So everything's great.
George, you're muted, mate.
I can't hear Toby. Oh, there's Toby.
That's great news. I'm sorry, we're just hearing a little bit of beeping coming from someplace. Just a little distraction. We're trying to just chat, trying to figure what that is at. But Jared, I heard everything. That's great. You got a lot of commitments coming up in 25. I'm astounded at actually how many RD events you've been picking up, and I've been seeing you all over the place. How is that coming to you these days?
Oh, thanks, George. Yeah, things are great. It's really. I mean, it's funny that the last time I was on the show with you guys, it was I was actually in Florida for the Snowboard Nationals, and everything has been just. It's been a whirlwind ever since then. Snowboards was one of my biggest. One of my first real big time shows I was able to do, and I still do that every year down in Florida in Orlando, and it just kind of comes one after another. I've been enough to get the opportunities from track owners and promoters, and just glad to not only get the gigs but also do a good enough job that people believe in bringing me back on, and not make people waste their money on me. So it's been great. Really enjoyed the other side of it. I know we had talked about this before, but I really enjoyed the other side of seeing how a race program is run, seeing how things work behind the scenes, and of course I've been able to dabble more in event promotion too. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of moving parts to make things work. And one thing that I really kind of praise everybody on every time I run a show is, we all know that the biggest downfall of a program could be people being ready and corner marshals and things along those lines. And I'm so glad and so grateful to have everybody's collective buy-in when it comes to running a good efficient program. Because in all reality, I could say anything I want till I'm blue in the face. It comes down to the racers showing the courtesy, showing the respect, making a program go. It's been wonderful. Really grateful.
I think I even saw you did one race announcement. I don't know what race it was. I think you and Lefty were doing it together.
Yes, yeah, that was great. That was the first Pro-Am last year. I was able to attend the inaugural one, and of course dates kind of didn't work out this year. Of course, Brett and I were discussing it a little bit, but wish those guys very well. This year they had a very successful turnout, a little bit bigger this year with some more pro driver appearances. I would love to do that race in the future again, as long as they see me fit. I really enjoyed working with Lefty. We really gelled right off the bat. The interviews were fun, and I really enjoy that part of it. It's cool to have that kind of personal connection with the racers, especially meeting new people down there and seeing a lot of people that I've met before but hadn't seen in a while. Really excited to get more into that side of things. I've gotten hired by Live RC as an on-air personality. Just have to see what my schedule is going to be. That's another commitment for 2025 that I have to start nailing down. But a lot of great things happen in life, George.
That's great, man. That's really cool. You got picked up by Live RC. Legitimizing what you're doing, it's real nice.
Thank you, sir.
So, we're gonna
Thank
get
you very much. I
into
appreciate that. It's great.
You're welcome. Well deserved. All right. I kind of paused on that delay. While we have Jared here, we're going to get into the discussion of obviously electronic speed controls. I'm going to talk about the history of them very quickly. I'm mainly an electric guy. I'm just an electric guy, not mainly. But I'm waiting for Toby to show the flashlight picture any moment. But until he does that, electric for me has been a very important part of the hobby. A lot of nitro guys pick up electric on the side for extra runtime. There's certain segment of us like myself that only like electric. But nonetheless, it came from someplace, so I'm going to give everybody a little bit of history on that. I'm going to have to read this, so I apologize for looking down. Basically, what's an electronic speed control? Electronic speed control is an electronic circuit that controls and regulates the speed of an electric motor. Also may provide reversing of the motor and or dynamic braking. Tech on that, right? ESCs are normally rated according to maximum current. That's how basically an ESC is matched to basically a battery for that vehicle. The battery, the number of cells connected, is an important consideration when choosing a battery eliminator circuit, or what's known as a BEC. And whether built into the controller or as a standalone unit, a BEC basically is a circuit within the speed control that allows, I believe, some switching and for you to be able to run other components on it, such as a servo or a transponder, as an example. Real quick, the first ESCs were for use in RC cars, made by Don McKay of this company called Jerobi or Jomac in the mid-70s. Basically, back then, what an electronic speed control was basically a circuit board, had a bunch of, I think, capacitors or transistors on it, and then there was basically some physical movement in order to get those accomplished. The funny thing is, as those are being designed over time, then basically I'm going to show a picture here of some of these older speed controls. Right. So if anybody's familiar with some of the first speed controls that came out, they might be familiar with one that looks like this. This is basically a full movement speed control. It's a plate. It's got 3 connectors. As that plate hits each one of those, provides a different speed. If you're in the lower speeds and not in the maximum, there was a transistor resistor, I'm not quite sure what it's called, located someplace else on the car, and that would dissipate the heat. So the same amount of energy would always go through the speed control, except if you're using lower gears, the byproduct of that energy not being used would be transferred via heat and used that way. Then speed control started to basically move to a different segment. Basically what happened was the first solid state MOSFET, right? So MOSFET's the keyword in speed controls. It's basically the alignment of the transistors or resistors, and they're mounted in series, I believe. That was the key thing. So some of the original speed controls that came out, the configuration of the circuit boards weren't in the same fashion. And there was a really smart guy that was out there, and his name was Kevin Orton. Kevin Orton, basically in 1981, he basically figured out that running MOSFETs in parallel was the way to get speed controls to provide the most power. And then basically the same gentleman, Kevin Orton, went on to form Tekin, which is why we have Jared here today, because basically the origins of Tekin came from this guy, Kevin Olson. That was basically 1981. There's a few other companies aside from Tekin that had first started coming out with speed controls back in the day. I'm going to list some of them, and then we'll get into Jared's conversation. Real quick, the other picture I'm going to present. So we went from that switch type of speed control to what's called the MOSFET speed control. And the MOSFET's kind of indicated here in this enclosed unit. And then I think that was a braking module that you kind of tap together with it. Not quite sure. I was trying to do some research, but basically speed controls went from that manual assembly to this electronic speed control that took advantage of the MOSFETs running in parallel. The first company that came out with the first electronic speed control is a company called Delta. They were most famous for the Delta Auto Drive, which is featured here. And Delta, if anybody is an original electronic guy or electric guy, you might be familiar with the Delta Peak Charger. I know Alan Place is familiar with it because him and his family probably sold those for years. But basically, this is a company that provided both of those experiences and products. And they were revolutionary, to say the least. A few other companies since 1975, just to go through the brief history of it. There was a company in 1977 in Great Britain. They had a product called the Demon. Then there was a Demon 2 that came out in 1981. That one had a relay on it for a full power bypass at full throttle that basically turns off the transistor and ran 1-to-1, I think, to the battery, which from what I was reading was like basically a turbocharged start off the line. After that, there was another company in 79 called CS Electronics. Then you had Simprop in 1980 to 1982. Roby was another one. That sounds familiar in another capacity also. Then I think CoPro, which is probably a division of CoPro, possibly in 1986, made another one. And then probably the most familiar name that came into electronic speed control prior to Tekin, and I'm sorry if this has been a little long, is Novak. So Delta was the first company to make one that was actually popular for racers. Then Novak came into the scene. And then I think somewhere down the line, the Campbells, who now own Team Tekin, had bought the rights from Kevin Orton, who started Tekin, and that's kind of where we are today with electronic speed controls. So with that knowledge and that background history, speed controls coming out in the early 70s up to where we are today. And with that, we're going to leave it to team manager Jared Bardin from Tekin and Tom Petrella to go over a little bit of what's going on, and then I'll pipe in with some questions on speed controls, or some of the other guys may as well. Take it away, Jared.
All right, thank you, George. And I apologize for cutting you off on the last sentence we were saying. I got a little bit of a lag in the stream. I had no intention of doing that, so I just want to apologize in advance.
All good.
All right, TP, what do we got? Good to see you, brother.
All right. We got everyone to talk about other stuff first. We can get this thing plugged in quick. Hold on.
Oh goodness. Well, hey, and you guys stole my thunder with the local racing rundowns. I look at that stuff like it's my job, and glad to see that the barn had a great race. Obviously, congratulations to Schreff for an awesome nitro buggy win. I know that old people around the country were raising their fists in approval when Schreff can go play the whips to Ogden like that. So that's pretty cool. Congratulations to Jason. Obviously, Tom, glad to see that Rhythm is having a great, healthy turnout. Looks like your racing's healthy there. Definitely stoked to get down to your track one of these days once life calms down for me here. And Toby, great job on the coverage. I know you were kind of beating yourself up over the cameras, but I enjoyed watching them, and especially the interviews. Everything was great.
Thanks, buddy. There's a picture of you with me hanging out at a gig.
Nice.
That's the for those that don't know, the common meme is Toby has recently identified like, hey, you look just like my son, and unfortunately it's becoming more and more undeniable. So hey, I'll send you the adoption paperwork.
He's a good looking kid, so it's not an insult.
Oh, thank you, sir. Yeah,
thank God he looks like his mother.
Jared, just send him the reimbursements for your race fees.
I know. But
actually,
unfortunately, he's going to cut off my announcing fees too.
Just move in. I mean,
just move in, Jared. It sounds like a good deal. Free beer.
Yeah, free beer.
You just got to do your own laundry.
You can even probably, I mean, do your own laundry. That's it. Feed the cats once in a while.
Oh, I love it. Well,
I know Jared wants to talk through what's happened with the ESC. So just quickly, I took it and just plugged in. I'm working off my laptop because that's when I can share a screen, but my hot wire is plugged in right now to my ESC, and then connected via USB to my computer. If you have the Bluetooth adapter, which is what I typically use, and I'm going to try to show my phone here, it may not or may not work. You can connect via Bluetooth and do all this actually on the fly, which is kind of cool. Again, many times track conditions change. You can literally have this in your car, pull over, say, hey, let me try adding some drag brake as an example. You could pull over, enter drag brake on your phone. It'll update on the unit, put it back in drive, never even leave the track, and go out and test it. So you don't have to worry about, hey, is the track different?
Quickly take it out of Blinky.
What's that?
Quickly take it out of Blinky before anyone notices.
Yeah, or that, I wouldn't do it. I can't handle 17.5, so it doesn't matter to me. But anyway, Jared, I'm connected. I'm gonna have to. I don't know how I'm gonna. You're gonna have to tell me where you want me to go, but let me share the screen. Toby's gonna help me here to make sure we got this done properly.
Oh, there it goes. Hey, I can actually see it. I was expecting to try and look at our at a little tiny window here, but yeah, this is a good way to do it. Thanks, Tom, for taking the effort to do this. So this is as you can see, this is an RX-8 Gen 3 that Tom has plugged in. I'm going to presume it's off your e-buggy, Tom, and this is what you see in the dashboard screen. There's not a whole lot to change on this screen, but you can see that there's a lot of things at the bottom. It tells you your cell count, drive mode, all sorts of stuff like that. And interesting settings I see from Tom. I might have to steal those later on, but you can see that there's a lot of adjustability already on this very first screen. So this is the PC version. Obviously, as Tom was showing you on his phone, it's a little bit different layout. There's kind of like a setup tab when you first get to the hot wire on the Bluetooth. So there really is no screen like this. But actually, Tom, this probably works out perfectly that we show the PC version, just because there are a few more things that you can do on the PC versus on the fly. So you guys can see the starting and ending RPM ranges. That's really more used for if you run a boost in like a sprint car class, dirt oval sort of. I know that some carpet oval classes were running some boost for a while. But this is one of those things that we don't use a lot in 8-scale off-road. So I'm going to try and keep it 8-scale relevant, George, as long as you feel that's the right way to do it.
Yes, sir.
Either way, I'm happy to cover anything we can do here. So the dashboard tab is very straightforward, but it tells you a lot of good things. And if you were to go in and actually update your firmware, you would just click that little advanced button at the bottom right corner, and it would show you different firmwares you can put on here. And I'm going to assume that Tom has 291 on here.
I hope so.
So yes, we go to the setup tab here, and this is a good start to kind of kick things off. I can see that Tom does run dual mode. I'm not. What is it? Does that mean you have reverse in, Tom? Are you serious right now?
Always have reverse in.
As long as you
Actually,
don't
no.
use it in the race, you're good. You know
I just
what?
noticed my BEC's at 6 volts. That should be. I'm not. So we're gonna update as we go here. So we're gonna keep going. This is good. We're gonna make some changes on the fly because my BEC should have been at 7.4.
Oh, perfect. This is like a live training session. I like it. So, as you can see, Tom's a rookie, so he still needs reverse in his cars. But usually, you would select Brussels forward only. So that that would be one of the settings that you toggle there on the motor type. And the cool thing on this screen is if you ever had like a setup from, let's just say, Joe Bornhorst, you could download his file and load the setup directly onto the Hotwire software, and it'll do all the settings for you. So one thing to notice here on this screen, I always, and luckily Tom has this too, the fan is always turned on. I would always endorse using a fan on 8-scale off-road. Even if your temperature LED isn't, right at the very end, I still wouldn't risk it, especially when how little voltage that fan draws. I would always run the fan. So that's about it for this page here, Tom. But that's a good start here with showing you cutoffs. I see you're about 3.2 per cell. You could be brave like me and run nothing, but that is a good way to keep yourself in check and not smoke a battery. So good start there.
One other thing, Jared, to build on what you were just saying too. Another reason I keep the fan always on is when you're using the hot wire via Bluetooth, it has to have the fan on for it to read. So if the fan's not always on. I had an issue one time. One of the guys at the track was having a hard time getting his Tekin to work, and he's like, "I can't figure it out. I can't." It connects for a second, then it disappears. Well, we got the laptop, hooked it up. His fan was on auto, and being it wasn't hot enough, the fan kept going off, so his hot wire wasn't staying connected. So, just
good deal. Yep, thank you for reminding me of that. I've never actually had the fan on auto, so I kind of forgot that part. But yes, good call to always keep that at always on. That way the fan port's always active. Good call there.
Hey, on the fly changes. Doesn't the Bluetooth dongle or receptor have to be mounted in the car? Right, it's just not wireless off the bat.
Correct. You'd plug it in where the fan goes, George, and you could strap it in or tape it down. I never leave mine in all the time, but if I want to do some changes and just experiment, it's kind of nice to leave it there, run 2 or 3 laps, and then make the change on the fly, and you can do it quick. But once I get it set where it is, I rarely have to take it out.
Once I get people to understand it.
Yes, great question, George. And that's one of the things that I've seen some of the on-road specific racers like carpet racers do is they will stick their modules in the car. I don't feel that is a necessary step, especially with having to plug into the fan port, but is a good thing because it doesn't weigh very much. If you ever wanted to take the lazy way, you can do that. So good mention there. All right, so Tom, what are you thinking about your brake settings here? We can go tab by tab. I'm happy to. It looks all looks great so far. But how's everything looking for you? And I'll kind of run through each tab, but I do want to know basically how you're looking to achieve these settings instead of just going with all pegged out or all zeroed out. Or what led you to these conclusions to get these brake settings?
Well, the big one I like to mess with, and you'll have this on Hobbywing and the other brands as well, is the frequency, right? So frequency, I run mine on a higher end. Typically, a higher frequency is going to have more pulses, but they're shorter in length. And Jared, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. But typically, the higher the number, the softer overall feel. So I don't want my brakes to lock up my car. Now, you'll notice on here, my brake strength set up at 83. That's still more than 80. If you actually look at my radio, I think I've got that rate probably down at 40. Oops, watch your head, buddy. It's my dog shaking. Sorry. Usually my end point is just at like 40%. I don't need all the brakes. I don't want to lock my tires up on brakes because I don't know about anybody else. I don't know anybody else driving. I can modulate my throttle with my finger. I have a hard time modulating brakes. I can pulse them, but I have a hard time modulating my brake when I'm driving on my radio. So I use my endpoints to kind of get there. So the brake strength, I keep that turned down a little bit. But again, the big one for me is that that frequency. Because if I took that number lower, the brakes would hit a lot harder. But that may upset the car in the turns.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Tom. And I'm just didn't mean to turn the question on you. I just wanted to see what
it's good. I'm happy to share.
Was, and I appreciate the fact that we're sharing the information because I do run a little different than this. I will go through each tab individually, and notice I've got notes that I'm peering up at here. I wish I could remember all this stuff by memory, but That isn't how my brain works. So
Well,
we'll just start on the left.
unfortunately,
We'll go
Jared,
with the drag brake.
if I can
Oh,
cut
what's
in
that,
quickly,
Tom?
the one thing I wish that would show up, like I'm hovering over drag brake, and on my window that I see, not the one that you guys are seeing, it actually does pop up what each one does. So if you've ever was using the software, if you hover over those like these different areas on the bottom, it'll actually tell you what each one does. Just unfortunately on the screen share, it's not popping up. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And that's one thing I was going to mention too. Is they were going to make my job way too easy and give you explanations on the screen, but at least you give me some content to work with. So the drag brake we all tune with quite a bit. I know I have just recently started doing drag brake. I was never a big fan of it. I was always in the camp of I'd rather let my finger do the work. And I don't know, Tom, maybe that's just my age catching up with me now, but I do appreciate a little bit of drag brake, just especially if you're running on a track that has a lot of tight 180 corners. You don't have to go straight to the trigger to start seeing your motor slow down. So obviously the definition of drag brake is how much brake is applied when you roll off the trigger to neutral. So that's without any push brake being activated. I see you run about 6. That's a great number to start with. I know I'm running I think 10 on mine right now. Just really helps set the front end when you first roll off the trigger without having to use the push brake and chance the car stepping out or getting upset. So great start there. The brake strength, we all know what that is, 0 to 100. That's just basically the total force of the brakes. Think about how hard you press the brake pedal in your passenger car. The push control is a good one to talk about. That is actually a coast setting. And that's really used more in oval classes. I know that there's some classes, especially modified classes, where some of these mod rotors, if you run a heavy mod rotor, I mean, the thing will try to act like a handbrake. You run the big 13 mil or 13.5 millimeter rotor in a 10 scale motor, and those things are just way higher Gauss numbers than any stock rotor can put out. I know for myself, when I run Pro Modified on carpet oval, I'll put about 20 to 30 push control in my car just so that it doesn't slow right down in the corners. You want to, especially with Pro Mod, you want to roll the corners a little bit more and let the speed control breathe a little bit. So push control I know is not used much in off-road, but in a carpet oval sense, it's very useful. So good thing to mention there. The brake minimum, another great thing to talk about. And this can be one thing that is misconstrued a bit, and it's one of those terms that isn't used a whole lot. The way that I have interpreted it and the way that I've used it is that changes the percentage of brakes you receive the instant you initiate the brake on the trigger. So I see, Tom, you're at 6 on this. That's a great number. Most things I do, I like to keep this at 0, and again, that's kind of my obsession with wanting my finger to do the work, and kind of gauging, like you said, pulsating the brakes a little bit, kind of modulating and seeing where you want to be in the trigger. But the cool thing with the brake minimum is if you have it higher, there will be more brakes. There will be more percentage of brakes the second you hit the trigger for push brakes. So as you mentioned, Tom, you have your brake strength a little bit higher, but it is lower in the radio for EPA. So there's multiple ways to get to the same end result, just with different feel. And the same goes for RPM brake and the active drag settings. Those are kind of they're 2 different types of brakes, and I'll cover the RPM brake first. I kind of got this explanation from Todd Campbell himself. The RPM brake is kind of like your infield brake, if you will, because we all know that you go to the end of the straightaway and smash the brakes, and that's the brakes, kind of the maximum brakes you have at the end of the straightaway. But let's just say you want a little bit more in the infield, you can turn up the RPM brake setting, and you can see that that's at 2 right now, but it goes all the way up to, I believe it's 10. So the nice thing with that is if you need a little bit more in an off camber or a really steep corner, I'll take, for instance, when I was at Brown's Hobby Shop a few weeks ago out in Ohio, they had this big steep off camber corner, and I had sufficient brakes to get into the straightaway, but I was really hoping for a little bit more control in that off camber section just to stop the car on the apex and not slide down the hill. The RPM brakes have really been a great addition to that program. And 2 is usually what comes stock. You can obviously turn it up if you have any more extreme features to work with. I have not gone higher than 2 yet, so I don't have any expertise in that. But the active drag, and think of that, and I love this setting. I never actually used it, but I got to shout out Gavin Vecina, as we know him as Gary V now. he has motivated me to try some of these different things. And the active drag, think of that as your panic brake. Let's just say you scoop the face of a jump out and you jump nose high, and most times you're not able to save it. You're just along for the ride. The RPM brake, or I'm sorry, the active drag has acted more of like a panic brake. Like, oh my goodness, I need more brake than usual, because the speed control can sense. If it senses like a snap in the trigger, like your panic braking, that's exactly what it's called. Panic brake is if it senses that, it can actually lock it up even faster with more reaction time, or slower with faster reaction time, and have a better chance of correcting the air. So a lot of great settings in this brake tab. A lot of people don't actually touch a lot of these things, and they end up being just as important as the throttle information. So I love the brake settings on the Tekin. I definitely feel that they have gotten this stuff right, and you can really, really fine tune the things that you're looking for. And it's very track dependent, as we know. It could be LCRC style, where it's looping and a lot of mid level corners. It could be more of a 10 scale oriented track where you have a lot more 180s and you're throwing yourself around the tracks. So I love the adjustability that Tekin's built into this tab.
So, Jared, I got one question before we hop to another screen. So, I fully understand what you were trying to explain, and I've been in this circumstance like probably many other guys, right? Coming down the end of the straightaway, I have my brake style back perfectly, so when I go full brake, I'm not locking up my tires. I'm scrubbing speed nicely, but maintaining control so I can start to do my turn. But yet, when I get into an off-camber section or something where I'm coming over, let's say, a jump or whatever, and at the precipice or right where the off-camber starts, I go to get on the brakes, and I don't have enough, and I overshoot that. So where does that RPM brake versus the other braking? Can you just kind of explain that a little bit of a difference, how that setting helped you on the off-camber, but didn't affect if you were on full bullet braking off the straightaway?
For sure, George. I have to be very truthful that these are things I'm still learning myself, because there's so many options. I mean, we all get so comfortable with what works, and we try not to deviate from it. I know I do that a lot when it comes to carpet racing. But the way I understand it, and the way that I've talked to Ty about it, is this setting can actually sense where you are, where the motor's RPM is in the rotation. So if you're slowing down for an off camber, and the trigger is sensing that you're needing more brake, the higher that number goes, it can actually put a stop to that motor a little bit faster. Let's just say you're in the middle of a corner and you want to just hug a pipe tighter, like that off camber we talked about. That's the way I've understood it. And of course, I still need to play out. I need to play with it more myself. I should really try to 10 one of these days and see if it just locks the thing right up. But at 2, what I really liked the experience I felt was it was able to really hug the off camber. I was able to roll that corner better instead of trying to sling it through there and trying to power slide out. It felt much more under control. And that's, of course, the way Gavin sets up his 8-scale cars. Chicky was kind of busting his chops when we were at Browns. He says, man, these feel just like a 10-scale car, and you drive it like a 10-scale car. And, I mean, obviously it works. He whoops our behinds, so he's got something figured out with those settings. This car felt great when I drove it.
It sounded to me, when you said it again, where it was like, okay, if the motor senses you're at a high RPM, right, coming down the straightaway, and you go to get on full brakes, it knows with that setting not to overpower the brake, even though your exponential might be set appropriately. But now if you're going through an off camber, since it's monitoring the revolutions per minute of the core, losing the right word for it, it'll come to me in a second. Basically, it knows it can give you more brake because the motor is at a less of an RPM, so it's not going to be as drastic as a difference. It'll give you more knowing you're at a lower RPM than higher, which would really blow your car out on the straightaway.
Yes, that's exactly how I would interpret it. That's a great way to sum it up, George. Is it actually, when I was watching, I thoroughly watched Ty's Tekin Clinic videos just to make sure I wasn't spewing nonsense. And he actually kind of called it the brake exponential. Instead of doing it in the radio, you can soften it in the soften it or stiffen that in the speed control. So that's our setting. I really have begun to like. And it's definitely something I'm going to be trying a lot more often. My home track at CRC Raceway has a lot more 180s, where I'd like to see if I can possibly stab the brake a little bit quicker, kick the back end loose, and then of course get that straight drive up off a corner. So I will be trying that this Thursday for club racing. I'm going to have my hot wire with me and trying to make some on the fly adjustments. I'll probably try something like a 5 or a 6 for the RPM brake and just see what it does in comparison to the 2, because 2 comes stock with the speed control out of the box. And then you can tune from there. I've always run at 0 until this season. I've started playing with it. So a lot of good things that even I still learn every single day, and that's why I really enjoy being in this position to learn new things and have team drivers that are faster than myself and more talented than myself that I can learn from. It's a blessing.
Very cool.
Yes, sir.
What do we got next?
So, Tom, if you want to move to the throttle tab, that's going to be the next spot here. And there's a lot of similarities from the brake to the throttle tab. And you can see there's a few less things on this page. So I give Tekin a bunch of credit for really coming up, really doing their homework on the less pretty side of the trigger, as I call it, where we're all worried about punching the gas and going as fast as we can in a straight line. But I feel like the brake and the control you have when you're reducing speed is equally as important. So onto the throttle tab here, you can see that Tom starts off with his neutral width nice and low. I always tend to run it down in this range, 3, 5, something like that. This is almost like if you were setting deadband on your throttle linkage of a nitro car. This is going to be, the lower the number, the faster the reaction time is when you first get on the throttle. You'll start seeing input coming through the radio and going to the speed control. If you go up a little bit higher, you can see you'll kind of new to yourself a little bit if you have a bit of a rubber band finger like I may have sometimes. But I never tend to run it any higher than 5. I've tried 10 before. That's about where I like it to be. But it is something that's very useful to play around with if you wanted to, on a lower grip track, almost prevent the on-off switch feeling. The neutral width is a good tuning effort with that. The reverse speed, we don't use reverse very much, except if you're Tom. I gotta bust on Tom a little bit, but that's very self-explanatory.
You know, the practice I can get, and I mess up a lot in practice. I need all the help I can get, so I have
Exactly.
yeah. So
I'm too lazy to go out there and chase the car.
Yeah, absolutely agree. No, I get you. Reverse speed is very self-explanatory, just how fast your car goes in reverse. I see Tom has it a very modest 41, so I give him credit for not being a total savage with that. So that's awesome. The torque level is probably the most used setting in the entire speed control, if I'm going to be honest. So this is probably the one thing that I really, really use a lot, depending on grip levels, depending on track size, things along those lines. You can see Tom runs it at 4. That's a very modest torque level. I always tend to be between 5 and 7, depending on grip level and depending on if I'm driving e-buggy or e-truggy, which truggy you can get away with doing a lot more stupid stuff. So I usually set up around 5, and I think I'm on 6 on my truggy right now. And to explain the torque as well as I can without being too general, that's just basically how punchy your speed control is. And you can see that it's at 4, it goes up to level 10. This is a really nice way, and this is what I absolutely adore about Tekin speed controls, is this is a really nice way to control wheel spin, first of all. So you're not just lighting the tires up when you first give it trigger, but the beautiful thing about a Tekin speed control versus some of the other name brands is that really keeps response times consistent. You're not cutting your torque down to 4 and just completely killing your throttle curve. You can still have that nice low speed feel and not feel like you're squeezing a 1/4 inch of trigger with nothing happening. So great job on the torque level with Tekin. I think they've done a wonderful job getting that feel right.
I have a recommendation for that setting. You subtract your age from 10, and then that's what you set it at.
I love it. So yeah, that's a great way to do it. And Tom, I give you credit with running 4. That's usually what Bornhorst runs is 4 or 5. So that's a great number to start with, especially on a lower grip track where you're just trying to keep the wheels moving forward but not spinning stationary. So that's awesome. Throttle minimum is actually very, very similar to brake minimum, but I'll just kind of quickly go over that. Throttle minimum, from what I've from what I've explored, I almost always keep it at 0 or a very low number for classes like 8 scale off road. It is a very nice tuning mechanism for if you're running like a stock off road class, or like Toby. I know you ran GT12 before in the on road classes. If you're running a stock class with a very with a lower higher turn motor like 21.5, 17.5, or very weak rotors, and you want the throttle minimum to be higher, basically what the throttle minimum does is that's the higher you set that number is the higher percentage that the motor starts at initial throttle. So think about a GT12 class where you're lifting maybe 1 or 2 corners in a lap. You can afford to turn up that throttle minimum to something like a 10, where the when you first hit the trigger coming off a lift, the motor starts up at a faster speed. So it's almost like you have more punch, almost like free punch with a stock class. So I really like that setting as well.
Is that a setting that's often used in off-road or mainly on-road?
I have debriefed with some of our pro drivers like Joe and Brandon Rose and Jared Wiggins. They often usually run at 0 or 1, just because in 8 scale you're always looking for the maximum feel of the trigger, the most input points possible. I almost always run that at 0 for an 8 scale setting. So that's something that isn't used a whole lot, but I can see that Tom feels froggy with it. And that's another way to make up for a little bit lower torque setting too. Again, there's multiple ways to skin the cat here. And from what I've noticed with Tom's cars, they all get around well, and I wouldn't doubt his abilities in the least. So I'm digging these settings. They're different. They're different than what I'm used to, but I really enjoy the creativity here.
So, real quick before you get on to the next timing tab. So if we were to use an example, right? LCRC races this coming weekend, or the barn race that was last weekend, or Tom's super hot out, super dusty, traction's hard to find because the temperature is really hot out. How would you find that you would adjust your torque curve? So whether it's an experienced racer or somebody new coming in, what advice could you give them before we jump to the next tab, considering torque level is the most important setting here?
Was that for me or for Tom? I'm sorry.
That's for you. You are a resident expert.
Gotcha. I know we mentioned Tom, Tom's got this basically dialed in for lower grip dusty style track. Now, if this was, I'm going to take for instance, if this was a Bago Raceway where they're holding the Quebec Classic later in August, and they've got an oiled surface and they tend to run a higher grip, I would turn this number up. It really all depends. I almost tune this to taste, if you will, George. Where if you can feel the wheels spinning and you're not going anywhere. That's usually when I'd advise to either go a little bit lower or start playing with things like you see at the bottom, throttle frequency. Tom runs a nice soft 10K. Obviously, the lower number you hit, the harder the throttle comes on. The higher the number, the softer it comes on. So Tom really has it figured out with the 10K throttle frequency to just have a nice, smooth, predictable curve. I like the way he does that. Now, the highest I've ever run was, I believe, 8, and that was in a very high grip setting. When CRC gripped up one time, it was like black pavement. I got to about an 8 setting, and really you're just trying to get it to the point where the throttle response feels good. You don't feel like you're leaving anything on the table for power. But of course, if you notice 1 wheel spin and 2, if your front tires are ballooning like pizza cutters, then it may be time to start tuning that setting. But generally, everybody falls between that 4 and 6 number. So I hope that helps clarify a bit.
Awesome. It does. Thank you.
Yes, sir. But Tom, if you had anything else to cover on that tab, please let me know. But your settings look great. I like that 10K frequency. Everything looks great. If you had any other comments, please feel free to interject and tell me to slow down.
No, I think you're covering it well. Like, just for my take, for my type of racing, I'm never going to be the fastest guy out there, right? My goal is not to wreck. And I try to set my speed draw up so that when I get excited, which I do get excited, that's half the reason we do this, right? Because the adrenaline we get, that I can minimize the mistakes I'm going to make. Now, if I had the talent of Joe Bornhorst or Jared or Brandon, right, those guys, they can get a little bit more aggressive because they can fix problems before it actually ever bites them in the ass. Me, I don't have the reaction time to prevent myself from biting myself in the ass. So I have to avoid the problem in the first place. And for me, I'd rather be a little bit softer than anything else. even in the nitros, right? I try to make this feel as much as I can like a nitro. Electrics have a lot more instant power, but this kind of slows things down almost like it would be when I have a clutch in a car and everything else. So I'm just trying to mirror. I want my cars to feel as consistent as possible between one and the other. I found these settings really helpful.
Yeah, I like it, Tom.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you for your input very much. I like it, and I definitely think that this is a great way to, like you said, bridge the gap between nitro and electric. I know that Techno had run their electric clutch for a while. Looks like that has kind of faded out in recent years, but I do enjoy these settings. And one thing that you also benefit from with a lower torque level is just less RPM spikes, which means you'll usually run lower temperature and also save voltage on your batteries. So as we moved into the world, back into the world of going saddle packs for most car brands, I know you had just joined Associated. Congratulations, my friend. I know you'll be running the saddle pack setup, and we have these little 6,000 batteries that we have to try and make last 10 minutes now, and sometimes restricting yourself from those RPM spikes is going to be a good way to make runtime as well. So, good call.
Lift and coast.
That's right.
That's good for summer heat too, like you said a second ago, right? So, and running these hot 95-degree days, keeping that fan running, super important, not pulling too much voltage. The other secret is, and experienced guys know this, less experienced guys don't, but and you can confirm, smaller pinion on your motor. If you're running into an overheat situation, you're probably geared up too high. So most of the times, if you're overheat and your ESC shuts down, if you typically can boot it back up, put a smaller pinion on your car, it typically won't happen in the next run. Just my experience.
Yes, George, I would agree. I think that there's a certain point to that. I have seen you can overheat from being way under geared, but that's only if you're like way out of the range. Most of these kits that are provided to you these days all have the general idea of a 1900 to 2000 kV motor. General idea of the track size. I know with my S-Works vehicles, they suggested a 15 pinion for my buggy. I ended up going 16 just because I run a 1900 in my buggy, and it seems to be a pretty happy balance. But that's only if you're like 2-3 teeth outside the range, you could see that possibly happening. But yes, I generally agree that if you're running hot, go down to a smaller pinion, and then you can obviously, if you need to make up for speed elsewhere, you can of course put a little bit of turbo timing in it. That will be in the next tab. And there's multiple ways you can make speed, but of course, as we all know, you're not going very far when you're just spinning the wheels and burning pins off. So great topic to cover, George.
Next tab, timing.
All right, so this is another. I see. I like what you did, George. I like how you brought me on so I can go back to this later and steal all time settings. I like the fact that he's got this custom timing profile. I'm sure what he's done is he's going to steal my thunder here. He's probably gone in and played with his power profile a little bit, but this is strictly the timing profile that you can run in. Obviously, C1 means custom profile 1. If Tom were to arrow up on that, there would be a second custom profile. So the cool thing is you can save 2 custom timing profiles, which includes your RPM ranges and how much you would like. So obviously, Tom runs minimum timing here. He runs 0 timing for turbo, which I think is a good thing. I think that there's enough power in these machines these days where you don't really need any additional timing, unless you're running at some ridiculously big track like Red Ovan in Spain, where you might want a little bit of turbo down the straightaways. But I even think a track like LCRC, I think that the motor and the pinion do enough work where you don't need to add a whole bunch of turbo timing. So good call on that, Tom. I do like that. Obviously, the timing advance and the turbo are a little bit different. Timing advance is more of a boost, and then the turbo really just activates down the straightaways, as you can see through the turbo delay and the turbo ramp settings. So I like what Tom's done here. He's gone 0 timing. And obviously, you can turn your turbo all the way up to 30 if you really feel froggy one day. But that's basically all for this tab. And then, of course, if Tom were to go to the curves tab,
Hold on 1 second, guys. Hold on 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Just because there's a lot of blanks here. So in the timing profile, you can make obviously 2 profiles, right? So in the timing advance, can you explain timing advance for those people who've never advanced a motor? They don't race 10 scale. They don't race any of those, older motors that aren't brushless where you're advancing the timing. I, for one, don't really, I've never really touched that in 10 years, but what is the timing advance for those people that don't know, Gary?
Yes, my apologies, George. I was getting excited talking about the curves, so thank you for pumping the brakes on me there. But yes, the timing advance is more of a boost, and what boost is that basically you can feel the boost from the very second you hit the trigger. That basically is just adds timing to the motor for it versus what's already in the can. So let's just say, for instance, you're running 35 degrees of timing in a 10 scale motor, and you're running an open timing class where you can add boost. And you want to get to that, say, 55, 60 number, you can add 20 or 25 degrees of boost through the speed control. And that's where you would use the RPM ranges to then state, what RPM do you want the boost to initiate, and then what RPM do you want the boost to end. So that's where it would be useful to know exactly through the data logging where you are basically at the beginning of the trigger versus when you're full throttle, to know your RPM ranges, and that way you can set them based on how you feel that you want the boost to activate. Now compare that to turbo timing. Turbo timing is strictly like on long straightaways. You can see where the delay and the ramp numbers come in. That is where, again, you can see, we'll just start with the turbo delay. Let's just say if Tom had 5 degrees of turbo timing in his speed control, for instance. If he had his turbo set with a 0.5 second delay, the throttle would need to be at full trigger. The speed control would need to sense full trigger for half a second before activating that turbo timing and therefore adding speed down a straightaway. So it's a little different in boost where you don't feel it until that has reached the allotted delay time, and that's when you would feel the acceleration down the straightaway. And that's very useful for things like a very, very long carpet oval or a dirt oval. Where you have a big long straightaway, not so much a circle track, but more of a paperclip style track, and also useful in things where you have a couple long straight sections in a layout. So if you have a long layout, let's just say LCRC does one layout that has a big long front straightaway and a big long back straightaway, it's something you could use. I have always opted towards boost, but turbo is an option in case you're running on a very large track.
So in general, the byproduct of doing either one of these, right? Because everything's a positive associated with a negative, right? Do one, it's like setup, right? Do one, you're going to gain something, lose something else. So the byproduct of both of these, advanced speed, increased heat, correct?
Yes, it definitely adds temperature. So that's where I'd advise you guys to look at your temperature LEDs. The cool thing with Tekin is it always gives you a temperature feedback from the second it's powered on. So in general, the Tekin should be right in the middle LED when it's first powered on, and then you'll see as you run it. Let's just say you run a 10-minute e-buggy race, and you can see your LED is now 2 away from the center towards the right. That just means you gain temperature during the run. I wouldn't advise adding boost if you're already pegged out at the right side of the meter. That way you're not thermal shutdown. I know that there are thermal settings in the speed control, but the hard thermal is around 260 degrees inside the speed control, and that's when the speed control senses that it's getting too hot, and it'll automatically cut power. So obviously cause and effect, but if you were to add boost, you would see it more coming out of corners. And if you were to add turbo, you would see it primarily down straightaways, just to put a very simple cause and effect on it.
Nice, Jared. That was probably the most important information that you overlaid on top of everything in the segment. It's important for guys to understand the difference. I know Toby's about to fall asleep in the segment. Tom gives half a shit because he actually runs electric half the time. But, there's a lot of guys out there that, whether they're running this product or other products that are out there, they look at all these screens, right? And then they try to get online, and sometimes they watch the video. But at the end of the day, sometimes the video doesn't go into a granular level that'll actually help them in the current race that they're in, right? So I like what you said about that. One's really good for straightaway, one's good for inside. Heat is the byproduct, and now I kind of understand that turbo delay and the ramp up. What's the difference between the ramp and the turbo delay? And I'm sorry to pin this to you. I know you're not 100%, but maybe if you know the difference, because I understand the delay, but the ramp I don't get.
Oh yeah, no worries at all, George. In fact, those two settings work hand in hand. So basically, the delay is the amount of time that the speed control will need to see full trigger, and the ramp is simply just how many degrees they would ramp up in each sequence. So obviously, you turn the ramp up, it adds more timing at a faster rate. So the stock is 1.0, as Tom is showing you right here. But if you were to increase that number, you could see it goes up 10 degrees at a time. If you're looking to really try and make some fireworks happen. So there's multiple ways to get there based on how you want it. So
the ramp,
it's pretty cool.
Is the ramp up similar to advanced timing, basically, but for that turbo setting versus the blue gauge?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Awesome. Just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Sure thing. Yeah. Not to jump too far ahead, but thank you, Tom, for showing this information. I do appreciate the fact that you're willing to give us this information. I think this is all good stuff, and I think your settings are all very much on par. Obviously, we have some differences, but I think that we kind of get back to the general feel that we're looking for and then tune to taste. So if you want to move to the curves tab, you are more than welcome to. And you can see with Tom's curve here, this is the default curve of level 3. And if he was to toggle down, you can see that the curve softens from the center point. And if he was to go above 3, that would make it a more aggressive throttle curve. And one thing that we can mention maybe a little bit more in depth for this video today, I would recommend watching Ty's Tekin Clinic video on setting power profiles. But this is with the screen you would start setting your custom power profile. Because if you notice on the screen, there's a couple of different yellow points there, and you can drag those points just like Tom is doing right here. And you can set exactly how you want your throttle curve to ramp up, which is super nice because you can exactly custom tune it to either your home track or you can save a setup for, let's just say, LCRC. You can save a setup for G's, save a setup for trains and lanes. There's a lot of different power profiles you can save in the data logging software like this. And as you mentioned, as you see with Tom here, he has set the curve a little bit softer compared to 50% input. And of course, if he wanted to go more aggressive on that point, he's dragging right there. He would just move it above the center line. So very cool way to exactly tune exactly how you want your throttle to ramp up versus the stock number 3 linear curve. So very cool feature that they've included in the newest software. And thank you, Tom, for demonstrating.
I think one of those lines was Tom's sleeper profile. It's like get on the throttle, then way off the throttle, and then full blast. Maybe that's his 180 layout.
That's how I brake check it, George.
Yes, that's what I figured. Something I like it.
That's the Matt Williards behind me. I need to throw him off his game. I like it.
This is, the way to look at it too is, this is think about it as Expo on steroids, right? It's Expo that you can make multiple points that you're adjusting, right? I keep mine's normally linear because I make a lot of my changes on the radio. I probably should experiment more with this. I haven't really done a ton with it in full transparency, but I use Expo, which works very similar. But this is nice that it gives you, now you've got multiple points that you can adjust rather than basically taking a stock default curve that the radio gives you. So if you want more in the mid or you want more in the half, again, it really helps you on those real technical tracks that you could say, hey, I want it to be very soft. And, I'm going to go through those anthills, LCRC that the Boomers love challenging. It's something you could leverage to do that.
Oh, how we love anthills. Aren't they great?
So, Toby, we've gone through a lot of discussion. Making sure you're still awake over there. So, as we've gone through a lot of these brake settings, have you learned anything about electronic speed controls? Have you gotten a little bit more fucking excited about getting your e-buggy out next round?
There it is. I've actually, except for one minor stray, always run Tekin. So there you go. Back from Gen 1 RX8s through all the 10 scale stuff. Only thing I'm really concerned about is when is this coming out? Guys, I've been talking about it for 4 years now.
I know. You know, Toby, you wouldn't believe how many people actually thought that was legitimate when it was posted because nobody reads a calendar anymore, so they're thinking, oh, that should be coming up real soon. I can't wait. And Ty had a good laugh over putting that post out. Yeah, like you said, now 4 years ago. Holy moly!
Yeah, no, it was a good one. That would have been right in the middle of COVID too.
I love it.
So,
Well, hey, I'm glad we kept you awake over there, Toby. At least I can take half the blame. I know George gave us the whole history of Benjamin Franklin inventing electricity, and then me going through my Tekin explanations. I'm not sure which one bored you more, but at least we had a group effort in putting you to sleep over there.
no, I mean, it actually encourages for me to be a little less lazy. I pretty much just put that thing in, calibrate it, and throw it on the track. So I have my wire. I think I pulled it out, adjusted the brakes. That's about anything I actually ever did on it. So back in the day, a few years ago, I used to spend more time messing with some of the settings. So it inspired me to maybe, making a bit more of an effort to maybe get the car to feel more like what I want it to feel like, or something like that.
A couple of those settings could actually help. It's pretty amazing
I need it.
that through the hobby, right? You and I were probably racing this speed control that we're looking at now. Jared wasn't even born yet. But
No, exactly.
anybody recall touching the resistor in the car?
Oh, yeah.
You were racing?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And
my
leaving
fingertips
it
are still
there?
numb.
Yeah. That's right.
So those
I
things,
keep behind
Jared, I'm sure maybe you've seen one in a frog or something else like that. But I was saying before, all the heat goes to the resistor, transistor, capacitor, whatever it is. And those things would literally get smoking hot. They had like a coil wrapped in just a piece of ceramic stone. And literally, if you're going to get your battery out and you were racing in lower gears most of the time, dude, that thing would take the skin right off your hands. I mean, you'd remember your race for a few weeks, that's for sure.
Yeah. They're right on this in this car, which is basically the frog chassis. They're right in here. Like, so when you would grab the frog or whatever, you definitely know about it.
Yeah. But it's amazing how things have come along from that, to the power, all that adjustability. And then, of course, brushless motors. One of the other things that's important to say through the progression is, along with the MOFSET design on the circuit board, which really gave electronic speed controls their ability to be matched with batteries and power and BECs and all that shit, is, damn, I lost my point. It'll come back to me. Damn.
40%.
It'll come back. Till it comes back next time. Just to keep things moving. As Tom's calling his dog through the background. Jared, I just want to say,
I thought I put you on mute. At least I turned the camera off.
there you go. You represent Team Tekin. Tekin's one of the largest electronic speed control companies in 1A scale off-road and other segments of RC. I don't know how dominant they are in the other classes, but I do know that probably I would say 60 or 70% of the guys that I meet running off-road run Tekin, right? The other half run different brands. But they definitely have a great foothold. When I did run Tekin in the past, the company was always very responsive, either getting an email from Sherry or Ty or some of the other people on board, when they were a little bit smaller of a company, was always nice, whether it was through a replacement or an issue. So great company to stand by and great products to support. So we can't thank you enough for coming out and explaining it. I definitely picked up some driving tips and setup tips. Although I'm not running that exact speed control, I'm sure I can parlay that information over to the other one. Always nice supportive background noise in this podcast. But with that being said, we're going to move on to Vin's segment, which is the setup segment in the podcast, because we're about an hour and 36 minutes in. But we'd love you to hang out, and we really appreciate you talking and explaining to guys all about ESCs through Tom's help and display. So thank you.
Hey, thank you, George, and thanks everybody. Thanks, Toby and Tom and Vin. Good to see you, Vin. I thank you for joining us after an hour and a half. But it's great to see everybody. This has been a great time. I always am very appreciative and was really truly honored that you guys had reached out to me to do a repeat episode. It's been great. Hopefully, there's more in the future. Obviously, as it goes, I know I've in the same breath said that I haven't done a lot of traveling this year. But any race that I'm at, anybody, please feel free to bump into me and introduce themselves, and if I can provide any sort of assistance with the Tekin product at all, that comes down to servos, that comes down to speed controls, motors, batteries, anything that Tekin offers, I'm happy to answer questions, or if you have some problems, at least try to troubleshoot them for you and get you, into the service department and get it fixed up. But really grateful for the opportunity to show you guys today. I think I learned some stuff myself, and just grateful for this opportunity to be on the show, and I'd be happy to hang out if you'd let me.
Awesome, man. That'd be great. And I remembered before we hopped to Vin, brushless motors has 3-phase, 3 wires. Right back in the day, you typically only had 2 wires running to a motor. So when speed controls got into brushless motors, they figured out that third wire, that's what gave the motors a lot more control from the speed control that they ever had before. That sensor wire comes into play for that. Prior to that, you didn't have that same kind of power. With the brushless motors also, the efficiency is a lot more than a brushed motor because you don't have all that loss at the commutator, right? Where the spark happens from a brushed motor, that's where a lot of the loss of the energy happens. That's where a lot of dirt happens, and that's where the motor starts to degrade over time. In brushless motors, the theory's actually flipped around. Yeah, there we go. I knew you were going to do some shit like that. But in general, for anybody who doesn't understand that, a brushless motor is actually the inverse of a brushed motor. So they take the wiring and flip it around, and through that, it's actually become a much more efficient power source. And that's why the brushless motors are so kick-ass, and why all you nitro babies complain when we can hit the jumps at a closer distance if we happen to be in the same race together. Now we can go over to pizza segment. Toby.
What?
No, I'm just laughing.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to queue up something else, but I just didn't have time. I'll get that next time.
Dr. Evil. No, you're good to go, man. We're just hopping over to Vinny's segment. Vin is going to take over the segment. He's got a segment, I believe, featured on Drew. Vin, man, take it over.
Man, you're muted, buddy.
We're having
Can't hear you.
I don't think he's muted. He's had this problem earlier. Remember, he had to restart and come back on.
No, it's not happening. That ain't happening.
Nope, he left.
This is
All right,
Drew.
well.
How far it hangs down. Drew.
Tom coming in clutch. All
I'm
right,
going to give you the 30-second one. Add more rear droop or drag brake if you want more off-power steering.
You were just telling me that this weekend, right?
Oh, goodness.
Right. So as we're waiting for Vinny to cue back in, Toby, that would probably mean as I fill in some airspace, maybe you can do some research on some of the upcoming events that are maybe listed in my notes in case we can't get Vin back on and we have to cut the podcast a little short on the segment section. So I'm sure nobody ultimately will complain because you guys are hot, tired. Toby's been at multiple race events filming. Tom's been running races. Jared's been calling them. But Vinny was cover group section. He's back. Let's see if we can get some audio.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back,
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm coming to you guys from LCRC. I have limited signal. I also just got back from a really long family trip, so I am definitely have some jet lag going on and maybe even a little bit of a cold. So just need you guys to bear with me today. I'm glad the audio is finally working, and let's see if we can get through this. For episode 19, we are actually talking about pro squat and anti squat. So Drew, we did last, the last episode. So I'll just get into it. All right. So pro squat, anti squat is the difference in angle between the rear arm and the chassis. All right. So anti squat, you're going to want a higher C block. Pro squat, you're going to want a higher D block. You're going to use the C and D blocks to adjust them, and anywhere from 0 to 4 degrees is usually where you go. And then if you go negative, that would be pro squat. Now, pro squat is barely ever used. You can use it on 10 scale carpet to really soften up the geometry of the rear and maybe prevent it to stop flipping, but it's not highly advised. If you can get away with some anti-squat, that's always preferred, and I'll get into why. So anti-squat, it's adjusted often. It affects the handling under acceleration, braking, and corner entry. So More anti-squat is going to be a powerful tuning aid that creates geometrical stiffness in the rear roll. Okay, so in the rear gets really stiff, and it actually makes the car resist squatting. And what this does is, because it slows down the roll, it's actually pushing the tire into the track surface a little harder, and that's creating more forward bite. So you want as much anti-squat as you can get away with. It also adds corner entry because the rear isn't squatting, so you're staying on the nose. So because you're staying on the nose, you can turn in a little bit better. You might even have some more mid-corner steering. And because the rear is loaded and it's not squatting as much, you are going to have a little bit of help in the jumps, landing jumps, with a little bit of squat in there, especially if you're landing on throttle. So it will jump better with the stiffer geometry. But if you take that away, obviously it's the inverse. And really, you want to take it away when you have bumps. Okay. So less anti-squat will be better in the bumps. You want to make small changes and keep as much anti-squat in there as you can. Because the geometry is going to get softer. It's going to be easier to drive. There's going to be more overall grip, but that's not necessarily going to be faster. Okay. So a lot of bumps, take that anti-squat out. Car will have less forward bite and corner speed, as I said, without it. And so because of that, you kind of want to adjust it to match the bumps. So you want to keep, like I said, keep as much anti-squat in there as possible, so that you maintain that forward bite. You maintain that rake angle where you're on the nose and you can easily turn into corners, especially on low grip. It'll help. And it's going to soak up the bumps as you take it out. So that's pretty much the gist of it. In case if you guys have any questions, hit me up right now.
So Vin.
Yep.
How would you notice if you're running your car and track's bumpy, right? And maybe you didn't adjust your anti-squat setting. What would you be looking for in the rear end of your car?
You're going to look for the
say,
rear.
okay.
You're going to look. You're going to see it lift a little bit in the bumps. It's going to have a lot of, like I said, geometrical stiffness. So it's not going to want to roll. It's not going to want to soak up bumps. It is going to make it more aggressive, where you're on the nose a little bit more, and there's going to be more turn in. So that might end up being too aggressive for people, and that's when you back it up. You have a little bit of, the track is getting bumpy, and then you're going to want to take it out. But like I said, you want to keep as much anti-squat in there as possible, because it's going to load the rear tire and give you that forward grip.
So on a really big, is there any time where you run zero anti-squat? Like if it's truly blown out?
Yeah, if it's blown out, or like on carpet, because on carpet, believe it or not, there's so much grip that if you don't get the car to roll, it's just going to flip. So rolling is your friend on high grip. So that's what's gonna. That's why I said about I did cover pro squat, but I don't think we've ever run it. Maybe we've tested with it a couple times, but we've never actually put it into one of our 10 scale carpet cars and been like, this is great. So 8 scale, you're not going to run pro squat probably at all. You're going to maintain at least a small level of anti squat.
What about like turning in, right? So you had made some reference. Tom had said to me some side notes this weekend when I was at Rhythm, in terms about front end nosedive, more power, more on power steering, off power. How does droop really affect that?
So you're going to also want to play with the kick up in the front of your car, which we did already cover. So it's a similar thing. So if you're going to put more kick up angle in there, you're going to get the front to absorb the bumps better, number one, and you're going to get the front to load a little bit more. So you're going to have more weight transfer. And now, because you're running anti-squat in the rear, you're also resisting the rear from squatting, which is keeping more bias on the front. So the chassis is actually raked a little bit to be on the nose a little bit more. So like I said, it's going to be a more aggressive car, but it's going to be fast. That's what you want.
So typically, if I'm hearing correctly, as kick up increases, anti-squat almost decreases?
They're two separate adjustments. So kick up is going to be the A and B block, and then anti-squat C and D. So they're doing two different things.
No, no, I understand that. My question is if it's bumpy, right? So in the front end in a bumpy condition or extremely blown out condition, you want to increase your kickup, right?
Yep.
As we covered previously. So in combination of that, right, you would probably reduce your anti-squat along
Correct.
with it. So
Yep.
if you had a lot of kick up in the front, you wouldn't want to run a lot of anti-squat in the back because you'd almost be fighting the front and the rear of the car. That's what I want to point out for people that are listening, in case they're not sure, and they could have the inverse of what's going on.
Yeah, generally speaking, you want to get the front and the rear to kind of match each other as far as roll, and that's why that's going to give you the most corner speed. Because if one end isn't rolling and the other one is, you're not going to get as much overall grip. There's going to be more instant grip on one end of the car versus the other. Initial grip, that is, because it's stiffer.
Yeah, Jared, right? It would be like what Vinny's saying is if you were running roll centers and you had your roll centers in the rear as low as possible, but in the front you had them as high as possible. You typically wouldn't run roll centers that were so drastically different. So I was just trying to make that connection between anti-squat and kick up in the front if you were doing that. Just good. Just trying to tie in some of the stuff you had mentioned before, Vin, with another section of the car, how it works in combination with that, right? Because many guys for probably a long time, unless they understand setup or reading about it, right? They don't necessarily, if they do one section on the car, they have to understand that the other part of it's kind of like a dance, right? The front and the rear are dancing together, completely upside down, or getting the front to do the jitterbug, and you want the ass of it to do a waltz. It's not going to work out too well unless you got them talking the same language.
Well, not necessarily. Like for example, at Crispy Critters, when I run 10 scale clay, I will run the front roll center position on the shock tower all the way up, and this is 10 scale, and then I will run the rear all the way down because I want it to load and give me forward bite. But in the front, I want it to roll and turn in. So, there are situations where you're going to want your car to do different things at different times. Yeah. So you got to test it.
Good point. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yes, and
Very
don't
good.
mean to jump in. I just want to say thanks, Vin, for clearing up one very glaring misconception that I feel is is spread through the community. Is thank you for clarifying that anti-squat. Adding anti-squat does not give you rear grip. That is so incorrect. That's I appreciate you clarifying that more anti-squat will be more aggressive and more on the nose. And I've had arguments till I'm blue in the face about that, and people have claimed I was incorrect. So thank you for clearing that up for people.
Yeah, Jared, it could be somebody's opinion because when you have that geometrical stiffness, you are creating more load in the tire. You're actually changing the carcass of the tire because you're loading it more. So you're going to have a bigger contact patch, and that's where people are going to think that there's more grip there because you're going to get that forward bite because it's just loading, let's say, into the carpet so hard.
Yes.
So it is in some instances. It depends on the track surface in the car and the way the geometry set up. But I could see why people might say that and might believe that, even after we've just told them, because it very much depends on the situation and how much the tire needs to be loaded. You got a stiff carcass, you need to load the tire more. There needs to be more initial grip in order to make it work. And if you have a really soft foam in there and you're overloading it, it's going to feel squishy, it's going to wander, it's going to do funny things on you.
Totally agree. Thank you for sorting that out.
Yeah, no worries, buddy. That helps.
Toby, what kind of anti-squat do you run?
I'll tell you if we can't hear. He's on mute.
Yeah, I'm mute. I can't see.
Yeah, that's top
it
secret.
is.
I'm sorry, I said it already. You're not going to get it again.
Was it funny? Whatever you said?
No, it was like more. I don't know. I'd have to look at my car.
Gotcha. All good.
He's British.
I heard
It
you
was
run.
cheeky.
I heard you're running just K car now, Toby.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Although I did win a Sparko over the weekend.
As if you needed another car.
Yeah, I'm not going to run it.
Hey, there's a lot of guys putting a lot of time. I'm sure you can get a really good setup sheet on that.
Oh yeah, no, it's popular. I mean, clearly it's good. It just won at the barn. An e-buggy probably would have won. You know.
What do we have? We had a Techno win and then a Sparko win, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So does anybody else have any questions for Vinny or comments about Droop, what they run, how they run? Anything to add to that, Tom?
Not me. No, I mean, I look anytime Vinny speaks, I listen. He's like, yeah, what is it? What was that guy's name? What was it? EF Hutton. Who was it?
EF Hutton.
Was it
EF
EF Hutton? Yeah. When Vinny speaks, people listen.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna be pinned next though. He doesn't know it yet.
For the listeners, if you guys can like, subscribe, and share, that would be awesome. Just helps the podcast and helps us get out there and keeps the sport alive. And any tips you put in the comments. If you guys have any tips for us or something you want us to cover, more than happy to accommodate.
Good point, Vin. I got to work with Toby and make some just quick ending screenshots about subscribe, share, all that type of fun stuff, because we always forget to mention it. And right, there's some algorithm out there. The more you guys click on it, the more you guys share, the more you guys thumb up or subscribe. We're approaching 500 followers, I think, on Facebook. Not close, but we're almost hitting 400. I'm hoping by the end of the year, maybe we're at 500. I just looked at that the other day for the first time. I know a bunch of YouTube videos and stuff like that, depending which video, which guest, they vary, but there's been some really good feedback on those and some good watching. So we're just trying to continually enhance the content. What I do know is we're trying to wrap this show up. We're hitting almost 2 hours. Is basically we have a lot of good content between now and September coming in. Next month, really excited. Vinny's been quite helpful. Vinny knows a lot of really good people in the industry, a lot of top level people. So Vin, through Vin's addition in the show, Vin's been gracious enough in expanding some of those relationships. So we are looking to have, I believe, Drew Singer from Nitro Po on the next show. So as I'm working with the other panelists here, we're trying to bring more relative content to what's happening in the actual season, right? It's great to talk about great interviews, good racers and stuff like that, but we got all fucking winter to talk about how great Schreffler's race was, or what he's doing with Sparko and Greg with Techno and other guys that were, discussing their kind of race pedigree, and other guys that are coming up through the ranks. But during this season, when you're running tires, you're running fuel, you're running motors, we're running electronic speed controls. Basically, we're trying to get and discuss those topics so that you guys can apply that in the field and maybe improve your lap times. So we got Drew Singer coming up. We're going to talk about nitro fuel. We had EB Mods on, who's also one of our sponsors. Again, thank you, Ed, EB Mods, for being a sponsor of this podcast. So now we're going to cover the fuels that go into some of these motors. And then basically we have hopefully a really superstar coming in September, which I'm not going to mention yet until we have it 110% confirmed. But we're super excited to bring that last segment for summer racing. And all I can say is it might have something to do with track down to the ground. So with that being said, we're super excited months. And then we're going to get into some of the other driver interviews in the fall and into the winter season. We also have a really good lineup for that. Some old school guys coming out that I've seen and been reacquainted with again. Maybe some of the guys from down in Vineland, and now I started seeing over at Tom's, and then a whole bunch of other people that all the other guys are going to throw some names and see what's going to happen. I obviously have plenty to say, but Toby, Tom, Vin, you guys have anything else to share with our followers, talk about this podcast or anything else? Toby may have some stuff to mention about some races coming up, or we already did that.
Couple of things to talk about. Obviously, we have a big race coming up in a couple of days. Just put up the flyer here. A lot of us fortunate ones are heading off to LCRC. Vin's already there. Project Supercar race is fairly unique for LCRC and probably a lot of races in the region. Just the highlight being Saturday. They have two regular qualifying rounds, and then the third, I guess it's not really qualify. They have what's called a Super Pole round. where basically you get to do a 10-minute heads-up main, and it will basically seed you for your actual main the next day. In addition, if you win your Super Bowl main, you bump up to the next higher main. So it's kind of cool. Get more heads-up racing in over the course of the weekend. So that's pretty neat. A lot of people like that race, myself included. And then in August, we have the Kyosho Classic, which is a reincarnation of what used to be the HB Days race, which was normally the end of September. So this is the new and improved, what is now called the Kyosho Classic. It's coming up beginning of August. Looks like Ryan Lutz will be there doing some sort of clinic. So that
I'm
would be
excited
pretty
for
awesome.
that.
Yeah,
Hope it's good to see Ryan Lutz.
Yeah, he's the man, and it'll be a good time. That's it. And Tom, I'll talk quick about rhythm.
Yeah, so we covered earlier, right? We got the layout change coming. We got a bunch of racing coming up in August. Some club racing. We're doing every other week in August. So we got August 3rd, be our first one in the new layout, and then August, I guess it'll be the 17th, and August 31st again.
Nice.
Try to get something teed up in September for Northeast RC Racer podcast race out there.
Yeah, we're gonna have some great plaques put together. Tom gave me the list of how many we need. So in September, this next podcast that we do in August, we'll start pumping it up for September. Anybody who can make their way out there, we would really appreciate it. I'm sure your pit room or pit trailer might look pretty good with the Northeast RC Racer podcast trophy or plaque. So we're going to try to come out. We really appreciate you guys for supporting us. So it's the least we can do is try to sponsor a local race, get some of you guys out, maybe meet some of the other guys on the podcast if you haven't met us already or seen us. So come on out and take a look at what's going on. Before we fully wrap it up, it's important to say this podcast would not be capable or would not be presented if it wasn't for the help of Toby Hampson and 46 RC Media. If you guys need Toby's help, or you have a race event, or you have something going on in RC that you want coverage for, give Toby a shout. 46 RC Media, he's got a website. I'm sure you can find him. He's covering all the big race events. If you're looking for some cool artwork, maybe some stuff for your pit room, trailer, house, workshop, I got whole bunch of stuff oh my god, can't even remember my own website for Christ's sake.
RCOffroadRacer.com.
Offroadrcracer.com. It's offroadrcracer.com. Got a bunch of cool stuff. I got tumblers, I got hats, I got t-shirts, I got sweaties, I got hoodies, I got a whole bunch of stuff that's really great for RC racing. So if you're interested, I really appreciate it and support. And last but not least, and most importantly, we can't do it with the actual dollars that come in from our number one and only sponsor at this time, but we are looking for more. EB Mods is our sponsor. Toby's going to slide some stuff in the final production, but without our support from EB Mods, none of this would be possible. All the fastest guys around, including Vinny, Kids, Harmer, Robbie Schreffer, and a whole bunch of other guys get their motors tuned and ready for racing with EB Mods motors. So check them out at ebmods.com. So with that being said, just trying to wrap it up because we're 2 hours in. I want to say thanks to everybody who's here. Toby, thanks so much for always putting it together. I know you're tired recently and you're going back to back to back. Everybody will see you doing race coverage at LCRC in a few days. Tom Petrella, thanks so much for always being here, running an RC track back in New Jersey. Vin Manchenda, always the man, bringing setup tips to all the racers locally. Thank you so much. Jared, second time here. You're the only guy in 19 episodes who's been here twice, so we really appreciate it. We'll definitely keep in touch with you and definitely look forward to bringing you back on again for a third time at some point in the near future. With all of that being said, I want to say thank you very much for everybody. Click subscribe, share, like, all of the above. You can find us on Facebook or YouTube. We really appreciate it. This is episode 19, covering Tekin electronic speed controls, the history of speed controls for flashlight racing, Toby Hampson's fucking favorite class of RC cars. Mine, to say the least, for sure. I wouldn't be in the hobby if it wasn't for electric. I love it. That's what makes me go out every time and support my Nitro brethren at the same point. So thank you very much. We appreciate you watching the Northeast RC Racer podcast. We'll see you again for episode 20. Fucking 20, bro. 20, guys. I can't.
Let's go.
Right? I'm super stoked. And we're going to have some good content for 20 and 21. So we'll see you guys soon. See you at the track. Let's go racing.